The 2025 Cannes Film Festival opened on Tuesday with a special screening program titled Ukraine Day, highlighting the ongoing war in Ukraine and the role of filmmakers and journalists in documenting it. Organizers described it as a tribute to those seeking to tell the story of the war in Ukraine and a reminder of how the war continues to affect not only Ukrainians, but the broader international community. Among the movies dedicated to the war is 2,000 Meters to Andriivka, directed by Ukrainian journalist and Oscar winner Mstislav Chernov. This documentary follows a platoon from Ukraine's 3rd Assault Brigade as it attempts to retake the village of Andriivka by advancing through a heavily fortified forest. Associated Press and Frontline collaborated for filming, which began in September 2023 and took nearly 18 months to complete, with AP's executive editor describing the film as an unfiltered look at the ongoing war in Ukraine. A Russian delegation will be present in Istanbul on Thursday, May 15, and will be waiting for the Ukrainian side. This was announced by Putin's spokesperson Dmitry Peskov on Tuesday during an interview for the program Moscow-Kremlin. Peskov declined to provide specifics on who will represent the country in Türkiye, reiterating that the announcement will come when Putin is ready. According to a report by the Washington Post on May 13, former anonymous high-ranking Kremlin officials suggested that Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and Putin's foreign policy aide Yuri Ushakov may be among the delegates expected to make the trip. President Zelenskyy will visit Ankara to meet President Erdogan of Turkey on Thursday, May 15. However, if Russia's leader Putin arrives in Istanbul, Zelenskyy is ready to fly there for talks. This was stated by the Ukrainian president during a press briefing ahead of his trip. At the same time, according to Zelenskyy, Putin's no-show would be the final point of him demonstrating that Moscow is not ready to end the war.
The ceasefire cannot be enforced by any person on the Russian side except for Putin. I discussed with President Erdogan that I would have a meeting with him in the Turkish capital, in Ankara. It will be on Thursday, the 15th. We will be waiting to meet with Putin in Turkey, so that Russia does not manipulate which city and says that Putin is not prepared to fly to Ankara, only to Istanbul. Then I want to say right now that if Putin comes to Istanbul and not the capital, I have conveyed the signals to President Erdogan, and the Turkish side is prepared for Erdogan and me to fly to Istanbul.
Zelenskyy also stressed that in case Russia does not engage in the negotiations, new sanctions have to be imposed, in particular, targeting Moscow's banking and energy sectors.
I believe that a Putin no-show, and again with any games, would be the final point of him demonstrating that they are not ready to end the war, which means that all the assurances from the United States of America, Europe, and the leaders of other countries must be fulfilled. Otherwise, you will not force or coerce Russia to take steps to any format of de-escalation. So, there will be sanctions.
He also stated that China is among the countries that support a 30-day ceasefire. Furthermore, after the Russian announcement of a 3-day truce, Chinese representatives made contact with the Ukrainian side.
For May 8th to 10th, Russia signaled in the media that they were ready for a ceasefire on those days. We have received a signal from the Chinese side that they support the 30-day ceasefire that Ukraine is proposing, as well as a signal from China and other states that it would be fair to go to a full ceasefire, so that on those dates there is security in a region where many leaders, including China, will be present. Ukraine has once again confirmed by its actions that it always does what it promises. Despite Russian propaganda, there were no strikes on the May 9th parade.
All French-produced Caesar-wheeled self-propelled Howitzers in 2025 will be delivered to support Ukraine's defense forces, stated the French President Emmanuel Macron. According to Military Media, there are plans to ramp up production to 12 units per month. During an interview with TF1 Info on Tuesday, Macron emphasized that Ukraine's strongest security guarantee is a powerful national army, one that France must continue to support, including with weapons manufactured by the French defense industry. Macron also declared that if Russia failed to agree to a ceasefire, Paris is ready to impose new sanctions on Moscow in the coming days.
They reject the idea that the ceasefire is unconditional. They want it to be part of the discussions in Turkey. I'll explain why we did all this and where we are. And so, our intention, in fact, if they confirm the non-compliance, is to impose sanctions again. There are financial services and there are hydrocarbons, on which, by doing what we call secondary sanctions, that is, by sanctioning those who resell these things would change.
Germany is ready to impose sanctions against Russia. According to the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, if there will be no real progress in ending the war this week, countries will work together at a European level for significant tightening of sanctions.
We
also expressed this in Kiev. Sanctions against the energy supply, also against this so-called shadow fleet, which is permanently operating in the Baltic Sea with up to 300 ships, and further access to Russia's financial assets. We are determined, and I personally am determined to get this underway now with all possible vigor and with every conceivable form of cooperation within the European Union.
The Ukrainian band Ziferblat reached the final of the Eurovision 2025 song contest. This year, the competition is taking place in Basel, Switzerland. In the first semi-final, the Ukrainian rock band performed in 5th place and were among 10 participants of 15 who qualified for the final, which will take place on Saturday. Ziferblat's entry in this year's contest is an emotional ballad titled Bird of Prey.
I use the bird because the name of the song is Bird of Prey. And I use the birds as the main symbol in this song. So for me, bird is symbolizing something like freedom, hope, changes, and it is something that is so important for Ukrainians right now.
The European Union has agreed on a 17th sanctions package against Russia. This was confirmed by the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. On her X page, she welcomed the agreement, adding that in particular, the new restrictions concern the shadow fleet of tankers. According to von der Leyen, the EU has listed an additional 189 vessels to target Russia's energy export. She also stressed that the war has to end and that pressure on the Kremlin will be kept high by the member states. Pope Leo XIV has offered Vatican mediation to help end wars around the world. Speaking before representatives of 23 Eastern Christian churches, the newly elected pontiff expressed the Vatican's willingness to help enemies to talk to one another, in hopes of restoring dignity and peace to people everywhere.
For my part, I will make every effort so that this peace may prevail. The Holy See is always ready to help bring enemies together, face to face, to talk to one another, so that people everywhere may once more find hope and recover the dignity they deserve, the dignity of peace. The people of our world desire peace. And to their leaders, I say with my hands on my heart, let us meet, let us talk, let us negotiate.
The Pope underlined that war is not inevitable. Weapons must be silenced as they do not resolve problems but only increase them, he added.